Hello everybody and welcome to That's Football. The World Cup is back and look, next England manager is something I want to get in early before we have these World Cup semi-finals, because I tell you what, it's a very interesting topic. I want to see what you've got to say in the comments, because it's raging at the moment that basically some people want Southgate to stay, but the vast majority are saying the next England manager must be from England. And I find, look, respect the opinions of others. I get it, and they are very strong opinions. We've seen people like Harry Redknapp and Jamie Carragher coming out with this, and a lot of fans as well. I mean, I don't think Carragher or Redknapp's opinion on this matters any more than yours or mine. But look, some people want an England manager to be English, and obviously, keeping Gareth Southgate keeps that. I mean, look, I'm not. This is not a video about why Southgate should leave. I think he's had a crack at it. He's not achieved what he should have achieved with those players, and it's time to move on. I think he's done a good job. I'd give him a technical director's role because I think he's more of an organiser, politician anyway. I think he'd be great in that role. But if he thinks he can do a job in domestic football, I'm interested to see whether he can. But the next England manager for me, Pochettino has come out and said he'd be interested. Tuchel's available. Brendan Rodgers is from Northern Ireland as well. He is not English. So I would take any of those three managers over what's available for an English manager. I did that a bit early then, didn't I? And what's available for an England manager? Well, you've got Sean Dyche, you've got Steven Gerrard, or you stick with Gareth Southgate. So you've got Dyche, Gerrard, Southgate, or you've got Poch, Tuchel, Rodgers. I mean, people are actually thinking with their passport. They're thinking with their passport, well, he's got an English passport, so I'm going to go with him. It's preposterous. It's bloody stupid in high-level sport that we haven't won. I mean, how much more do we want to hinder ourselves? We haven't won a tournament with England since 1966. It's coming up for 60 years. It'll be 60 years at the next World Cup. 60 years since we've won a World Cup. And is it 60? Yeah, it'll be 60 years. And people want to further hinder us by saying you must have an English passport. We can't win the thing anyway without saying you must have you've got to have a bloody English passport. I mean, we're the masters at making things hard for ourselves. Now, I know we've won fuck all, but let's make sure they've got an English passport as well, just to make it even harder. Oh, but you're forgetting, Mark, if when we do with it, with an English manager, it'll be all the more enjoyable. I couldn't give a shit. Do you think I couldn't give a shit? And when we win it with an English manager, I mean, come on, I don't think that's likely. I think you get the best is available and you do it, and sod what any other country's doing. I don't really care. You've got to do what's best for us. If Potter and Eddie Howe are available, let's have a conversation. I think you should always try and go for an English manager for the English national team. I agree with that. But in this situation, there's not a lot of good candidates. Therefore, you've got to go for what is available. And the best that are available for me is a Pochettino or a Tuchel or even a Brendan Rodgers. They're way better than what's available with an English passport. And the big argument with this as well is the women's team has just won the Euros with a non-English manager. I believe the lady is Dutch. So I thought she was German, but apparently she's Dutch. So, I mean, what's your argument for that? Because if you say the English men's team should have an English manager, the women's team has just won their first trophy, I think, haven't they? I don't know whether they've won the Euros before with a non-English manager. And don't even think of saying, well, that's the women's game. We live in a diverse world now. Women's football's doing fantastically well. You've got women commentators, you've got women presenters. This is football. That is what football is all about. And you cannot say that, well, it's not the same as men's football because what? That'd be a nonsense. The women's team won the Euros with a non-English manager, and it was a major achievement. Was it an issue? No. They got the best person for the job and they delivered a trophy. If in 4 years' time a non-English manager wins us the World Cup, do you think many people will be going, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right because he hasn't got an English passport. It's a complete and utter nonsense. It can be a preference. It can definitely be an opinion, but it cannot be a rule. The rule is ridiculous. You cannot have a rule that the next England manager must be English. That is a stupid rule in the modern world. It's 2022, not 1952. And also, English sport in general is riddled with contradiction around this. Now, predominantly in rugby and cricket, there are a lot of players that have played over my lifetime, not even in the last 10 years, over my lifetime, over the last 3 or 4 decades. There's been numerous players that were not born in England and have played for England. And in cricket, Kevin Peterson, South African. In rugby, Manu Tuilangi, not born in England. So there are many, many examples of that. And there are even in football quite a few examples of it as well, of players that have played for the English national team who weren't born in England. And it's also, I just think it's a wrong way to be in the modern world as well, because, my kids go to school. I'm sure, some of you are young enough that have this as well. It wasn't as prevalent when I was a kid, but there are so many people who come to England for various reasons, not just because of, bad reasons like war and poverty, but also work reasons. The world is a smaller place. You can get someone who comes to your school who's been living in a different country when they're 10. 10 years they've been living in a different country. They come into England and they're there for the next 10 years. If they're good at football, are we going to say, no, you lived in a different country till you were 10, therefore you can't play for England? No, they would be able to play for England because that is the rule. So I think this whole English manager must be English, it's worrying for me because it's so naive that you would go, I would rather keep Southgate or go for Steven Gerrard or Sean Dyche over Pochettino, Tuchel or Brendan Rodgers. I mean, it's like going for something that's not as good because of its passport, and that for me is completely wrong. It's idealistic, and I think that I go back to my system of the traffic light where you've got red, amber, green. Red, no, must always be an English manager, but the truth is the amber, which is in between the let's do everything. The truth is in between because there are so many complex differentials around this. I mean, imagine a manager. Imagine if Eddie Howe had been born in a different country and brought up in Canada, and he was born in Canada, brought up in Canada, and moved over to England when he was 17, and then didn't ever play for a national team because he wasn't good enough, and then became Newcastle manager. You'd give him the job. Oh, he's been managing in England for 20 years, but he was born in Canada and played and lived in Canada until he was 15. Yeah, but he never played for Canada. He was never good enough. He's born in Canada. Well, yeah, he's not an English manager then, is he? You see what I mean? This is the world we live in. It's not defined by rule. Diversity, whatever you want to call it, it's not defined by rules. If we're going to say every England manager now must be English, you're going to have to check the passport. You're going to have to check, and what's the cut-off point? Because there will be a cut-off point. Because in that scenario I've just explained, people would say, yeah, but he's managed in the Premier League, and yeah, he can have the job. Well, straight away you've broken your rule there. And these sort of rules are very dangerous because basically you're saying born in England, English passport. No, we're not saying that. What we're saying is, well, we don't know what we're saying, and that's what I mean. I just think if you go for the best, you can never be criticised. When you start making rules up, or saying we're going to go for this type of person over that type of person, it will never be fair. The fair process is to go for the best person available who wants the job. Now, if Thomas Tuchel says, I don't want to manage England, I'm German, that's fine. If Pochettino says, I don't want to manage England, I'm Argentinian, that's fine. Same for Brendan Rodgers. But if they want the job and they're the best person for the job, then they should get the job. And that's all I'm saying. If Eddie Howe or Graham Potter were available, I would take them over Pochettino or Tuchel because, yes, they are English and they do understand what it means to be an English manager in the Premier League. It's very, very difficult, and therefore I think there are traits that would make them very suitable as the England manager, because they've mixed it up as English managers from the bottom of English football to the top of English football, and they're competing against the Peps week in, week out. But if you're asking me, do I want any old England manager? No. They've got to be a quality England manager, and then I would probably say, yeah, their experiences would probably put them above a Tuchel or a Poch, just about. But even then, you could say, I'd rather Poch than Eddie Howe. I'd rather Tuchel than Potter. but I would not go with, I don't want Poch or Tuchel, I want somebody who's English. I mean, that to me is just ridiculous. Get your comments in below, let me know what you think. Really interested to see this debate, because we're all going to have different opinions, and that's what it's all about. Make sure you smash a like on the video, subscribe, and I will see you later for the World Cup semi-final between Argentina and Croatia. God, I've lost interest. Speak to you in a minute. A bit.